Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the UX Research Club, the podcast dedicated to the field of UX research. This is Emmanuelle, your host. Before we begin today's episode, I wanted to take a moment to share some exciting news and say thank you. The UX Research Club has recently been ranked as the third UX research podcast globally. For a podcast that I started as a passion project, as a pet project to share ideas, experiences, and conversation about a profession, this is a huge recognition. And I want to sincerely thank you, all of you, for listening, subscribing, and share episodes with colleagues and continue to support the podcast. Knowing that these conversations resonate with researchers, leaders, designers, and product teams around the world means a great deal to me. And if you found value in the podcast, I would love to hear from you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know which episode has been the most useful and what topics you would like me to explore in the future. And if you haven't already, I would be very grateful if you could leave a rating or review on your preferred podcast platform. Those ratings help more people discover the show and help us continue growing this amazing community. So thank you again for being part of this journey. So now, let's get into today's topic. Today, I want to continue our conversation about AI in UX research, but from a different perspective. In the previous episode, we explored what I call the illusion of understanding, how AI-generated fluency and can sometimes create the feeling that understanding has already happened before we have really challenged the evidence deeply enough. But today, I want to focus on something different, not cognition, not interpretation, but operations. Because one thing I have been thinking about more and more recently is that AI integration is going to expose something many organizations rarely examine closely, their operational maturity. Right now, almost every organization is trying to integrate AI into workflows, research workflows, product workflows, operational workflow, management workflow, etc., etc. Everybody wants to move faster, automate more, and increase efficiency. But AI does not arrive in isolation. It arrives inside existing systems, existing workflows, existing management structure, and existing organizational culture. And I think over the next few years, AI will reveal something very important, which organizations have built strong operational foundations and which one have been relying on workaround, individual effort, and organizational improvisation. So right now, almost every organization is trying to integrate AI into workflow in some ways, research workflow, product workflow, operational workflow, management workflow, decision-making workflow. Everybody wants to move faster, scale faster, automate faster, and increase efficiency. And of course, there are clear advantages to that. But I think something very important is often being overlooked. Because AI does not emerge independently of the system around it. It will embed it inside existing systems, existing workflows, existing management structures, existing operational culture. And the reality is not all organizations operate with the same level of maturity underneath. Some teams already have clear governance, clear workflows, clear operational standards, clear ways of working. Others are still operating in a much more fragmented and inconsistent ways. And honestly, I think AI is going to make that gap much more visible over the next few years. Because AI does not automatically create operational maturity. In some cases, it may actually expose operational weaknesses much faster. And that is what I want to explore today. Now, before going further, I think it is important to clarify something. What I'm going to discuss today is not only about UX research. These apply much more broadly across organizations, product teams, design teams, operation, customer support, marketing, finance, HR, strategy, and leadership itself. Because right now, Almost every business function is trying to integrate AI into workflow in some way. Everybody wants to move faster, scale faster, automate faster, reduce operational friction, increase productivity, and improve efficiency. So the operational question we are discussing today are much bigger than research alone. But because this is a UX research club, and because UX research is the field I know deeply from inside organization, I am going to use UX research as the use case to explore this broader question of transformation. And actually, research is a very interesting lens for this conversation. Because research sits at the intersection of people, systems, operations, decision-making, communication, evidence, and workflow design. So many of the tension we are starting to see in research right now are probably early signal of what many other business functions will experience too. And one thing I've observed over the years is that not all research organizations operate with the same level of operational maturity. Some teams are highly structured, clear workflow, clear governance, clear prioritization, clear ways of working, clear communication structures, clear operational standards. What do I mean by that? With the organization, people know how research enters in the pipeline, how projects are prioritized, how participants are recruited, how suppliers are onboarded, how budgets are reviewed, how projects are tracked, how updates are communicated, how findings are shared, how repositories are maintained, and how new researchers are onboarded, and how, of course, quality is reviewed. In another word, the operational architecture exists within the process underneath the work. And this is very important because mature organizations do not scale through individual errorism. They scale through system, through repeatable workflow, operational clarity, governance, consistency, transparency. But in many organizations, research still operates in a much more fragmented way. Instead, processes live inside people's heads rather than inside scalable systems. And honestly, I've worked in many organizations where every researcher was operating slightly differently. Different templates, different way of recruiting participants, different ways of reporting findings, different ways of communicating with stakeholders. And initially, it can still appear functional because strong individuals, strong researchers compensate the operational aspect. But once you try to scale research across multiple teams, products, or markets, the lack of operational consistency becomes much more visible very quickly. One researcher works one way, another works completely differently. Recruitment may vary from team to team. Stakeholder communication depends on personality rather than operational standards. Knowledge management is inconsistent. Prioritization constantly shifts. Project visibility is reactive rather than structured. And often, organizations still manage to function like this for quite a long time. People improvise, teams create workarounds, knowledge gets transferred informally, operations rely heavily on personal effort and manual coordination. And from the outside, it can still appear functional. But I think AI integration will expose these operational maturity gaps much more quickly. And now integrating AI needs to take into consideration that it arrives inside existing workflow, existing operational structure, existing governance structures, existing management systems, and that is extremely important. People improvise. Teams create workarounds, knowledge gets transferred informally, operations rely heavily on personal effort and manual coordination. And from the outside, it can still appear functional. But I think AI integration will expose this operational maturity gap much more quickly. Because I think some organizations currently assume that AI itself will somehow create operational maturity. Introducing AI tool will automatically create efficiency, automatically create consistency, automatically create scalability. But actually, operational maturity does not come from the tools. Operational maturity comes from systems. And in some cases, AI may actually amplify operational weaknesses rather than solving it. AI scales system. So if the underlying system itself is fragmented, inconsistent, or immature, AI may simply scale the weakness faster. And actually, I think this conversation also extends much further than workflow alone. Because another area where maturity becomes very visible very quickly is people management itself. And again, this is not limited to UX research. This applies across the organization because management is also a workflow. Onboarding people, supporting development, managing performance, giving feedback, setting expectation, prioritizing work, communicating decision, escalating issues, running teams rituals, supporting career growth, managing workload, creating visibility, aligning objective across the teams, etc., etc. All those things are operational process too. But in many organizations, people management still operates very differently depending on the individual manager. One manager structure onboarding carefully, another improvise completely. One manager communicates clearly and consistently, another communicates very little or too much. One team may have strong rituals, clarity, and operational discipline, while another team inside the same organization may operate in a completely different way. And again, organizations often tolerate this inconsistency because experienced individuals compensate the weak system. But once AI transformation starts scaling across organizations, those inconsistencies become much more visible because AI integration requires coordination, shared standards, workflow consistency, governance, clear ownership, and operational alignment. And that becomes very difficult if every manager, director, or department operates through a completely different way of working. So operational maturity is not only about research workflow, it is about management architecture, what the operational process manager are expected to follow. How are workflow reviewed? How are teams supported? How are priorities communicated? How are operational standards maintained? And how are transformation efforts coordinated? And of course, how are teams aligned across the business? Because if organizations want to integrate AI successfully at scale, they need consistency not only in technology, but in operational and management practices too. And honestly, I think this is one of the reasons many AI transformations may struggle over the next few years. Not necessarily because the technology itself is weak, but because the operational systems and management structures beneath the organization are not yet mature enough to absorb the transformation consistently and responsibly. And I think this is where AI transformation become very interesting organizationally. Because many companies currently believe that introducing AI into workflow will automatically create efficiency, automatically create operational maturity, and automatically improve ways of working. But I think in many situations, AI may actually expose operational weaknesses much faster. Because automation does not automatically create structure. If the underlying workflow are fragmented, the governance unclear, the ownership is weak, the operational discipline is inconsistent, then AI may simply accelerate the inconsistency. And honestly, I think we are already starting to see this happen. Different teams using different AI tools, different prompting approaches, different quality standards, different ways of validating output, different governance interpretations, different level of human review. Some teams automate heavily, others do not trust the tools at all. Some managers encourage experimentation, others block usage completely. Some teams create documentation, others operate informally. And after a while, organizations start creating fragmented AI ecosystems inside the business itself. Not because people are incompetent, but because the operational structure underneath the transformation was never fully stabilized in the first place. So instead of creating consistency, AI can sometimes amplify fragmentation. And I think this is where an important misconception exists. Some organizations still think if we introduce enough AI tools, efficiency will naturally emerge. But actually, automation applied to weak systems often amplify weaknesses rather than solving it. If the workflow itself isn't clear, AI accelerates the confusion. If ownership isn't clear, AI accelerates duplicated work. If governance is weak, AI accelerates inconsistency. If validation standards do not exist, AI accelerates unreliable outputs. So in many cases, AI is not creating operational sophistication. It is creating the appearance of operational sophistication. And those are two very different things. Because polished output can sometimes hide operational fragility underneath. The organization appears more advanced, more efficient, more AI-enabled, but underneath, teams may still be operating inconsistently, process may still depend heavily on individuals, standard may still vary dramatically across the teams, operational orchestration may still be weak. And I think this is one of the reasons AI may expose operational immaturity much faster than previous technology ever done. Because AI touches workflow directly, it touches decision-making, coordination, knowledge management, communication, analysis, prioritization, and the pace of work itself. So weaknesses that were previously partially hidden by human adaptation suddenly become much more visible. And actually, this also connects to something very important operationally. One of the signs of a mature system is that the organization continues functioning effectively even when key individuals are absent. If a manager leaves, if someone is on holiday, if someone is off sick, the system itself continues operating because the workflows are documented, the operational standards are shared, the orchestration mechanism exists, the process continues functioning beyond the individual. That is a very important sign of maturity. But what we often see in organizations is that processes sometimes exist only because a specific person is constantly holding the system together manually. The orchestration lives inside the individual rather than inside the organization. Even robust infrastructure can deteriorate over time if orchestration disappears. And honestly, I think orchestration is one of the most underestimated aspects of operational maturity. Because systems do not maintain themselves automatically, somebody still needs to align teams, maintain standards, review workflow, coordinate priorities, ensure consistency, and protect operational coherence across the organization. And these matter enormously in AI transformation. Because AI integration is not simply about introducing tools. It is about orchestrating operational change across systems, teams, and workflow. In many cases, mature teams are probably in the best position to benefit from AI integration. Because mature teams usually already understand their workflow in details. They understand where friction exists, where repetitive operational effort exists, where coordination becomes difficult, where scaling becomes challenging, where quality risks appear, and where human judgment remains absolutely critical. Instead of asking, where can we automate everything? They ask, where can AI help us work better without losing the judgment, the quality, and oversight that still matter? That is a much more mature operational question because not every workflow stage carries the same level of risk. Some operational areas are actually very well suited for AI support. Administrative coordination, project tracking, scheduling, repository organization. documentation support, internal update, communication preparation, meeting summaries, workflow visibility, operational monitoring, etc., etc. Those kind of activity often consume enormous amount of operational energy within the organization. And if AI can responsibly reduce some of that administrative friction, that creates real value. Because researchers should not spend unnecessary cognitive energy on repetitive operational tasks that do not require deep human judgment. But there are other areas where the level of risk becomes much higher. Strategic interpretation, emotionally sensitive research, research involving vulnerable population, high-stake business decision, complex contextual interpretation, politically sensitive environment, and human situation that requires empathy, ambiguity, and contextual understanding. And this is where mature organizations become much more careful. Because once AI moves closer to interpretation, judgment, and strategic recommendation, the consequences of weak oversight become much more significant. So mature teams tend to create additional layers around AI integration. They review mechanism, governance structure, validation process, human oversight, escalation path, quality control, clear ownership and accountability. But because they understand operational risk. And I think this is one of the most important differences between mature and immature AI integration. Immature organizations often focus primarily on how much can be automated. Mature organizations focus on where human judgment must remain central and where delegation to AI remains acceptable and low risk. Because ultimately, AI integration should never be separated from risk evaluation. Mature teams understand that some decisions can safely be accelerated, others cannot. Some workflow stages carry limited operational consequences if AI make a mistake. Other carries strategic consequences, ethical consequences, human consequences, and of course, reputational consequences. And the most mature the organization becomes, the more intentionally it starts distinguishing between those different levels of risk. Because operational maturity is not about maximizing automation. Actually, maturity often means knowing where not to automate, knowing where slowing down is still necessary, knowing where ambiguity matters, where emotional nuance matters, where contextual understanding matters, and where human accountability must remain visible. And honestly, I think that is where many organizations will struggle over the next few years. Because AI creates enormous pressure toward acceleration. But mature organizations understand that speed alone is not the objective. The objective is sustainable operational quality. And actually, once organizations start redesigning workflow intentionally around AI, something else becomes possible too. Research teams can start helping other parts of the organization rethink their workflow as well. Because once UX research team goes through this transformation themselves, rethink governance, rethink operational system, rethink human oversight, rethink how AI and human collaborate inside the workflow, they develop expertise that become valuable far beyond research alone. And this is where I think UX research has a much bigger opportunity than many organizations currently realize. Because successful AI transformation is not simply a technical deployment problem. It is a human workflow redesign problem. And UX research already understands human behavior, friction, trust, adoption, systems, operational pain points, decision-making, organizational complexity. So once mature research teams successfully redesign their own workflows, they are actually in a very strong position to help the wider organization rethink how AI integrates across teams, function, and operational system. And honestly, I think this is where UX research may become much more strategically important in the AI era. Not only because we study users, but because we understand how humans interact with systems, including organizational systems themselves. And I think this is where the conversation becomes even bigger than workflow redesign itself. Because AI is not only changing workflows, it is also changing organizational expectations around speed, delivery, and productivity. And honestly, I think this shift is happening much faster than many organizations realize. Because once AI starts generating instant summary, instant analysis, instant transcript, instant documentation, presentation, synthesis, etc., the organizational perception of what is considered as fast start changing very quickly. Because how quickly work is expected to happen is largely psychological. It is shaped by what people become used to. Leadership expectation immediately start shifting. I think many researchers are already feeling the pressure. The moment AI can generate first-pass summary or thematic clustering very quickly, the expectation around delivery speed change almost immediately. And suddenly organizations start questioning workflows that previously felt like completely normal operations. So questions start appearing. Why does this still take so long? Why are we manually reviewing this? Can one researcher now handle more projects? Can the team scale output faster? Do we still need this many agencies? Can turnaround time be reduced? And gradually, something important begin to happen. AI stops being perceived as optional support. It starts becoming embedded operational infrastructure. And I think this is one of the biggest transformation organization needs to pay attention to. Because AI is not only changing what works gets done, it's changing the expected pace of work itself. And once organizations start restructuring expectation around AI-generated speed, slower human-centric processes can start looking inefficient, even when they are strategically necessary. And honestly, I think this creates a real tension for knowledge work, because some activities can be accelerated, but others require immersion, reflection, ambiguity, human judgment, and time. Not because people are slow, but a deeper understanding often requires cognitive friction. And I think there is a real risk that organizations start confusing faster output with deeper understanding. Of course, speed is extremely attractive operationally. If a dashboard appears instantly, if a theme appears instantly, if report appears instantly, the organization naturally starts feeling more productive. But productivity and quality are not always the same thing. And this has become even more important in strategic environments. Because high quality strategic thinking often requires slowing down, challenging assumptions, sitting with ambiguity, reviewing contradictions, understanding context, and questioning first interpretations. Those processes are cognitively slower by nature, and AI acceleration can sometimes create pressure to bypass them. And actually, we have seen similar operational shifts before with other technologies. Look at, for example, email change expectation around responsiveness. Smartphones change expectation around availability. Slack and Teams change expectation around communication tempo. Cloud collaboration change expectation around coordination and access to information. At first, these technologies were introduced as productivity support tools. But over time, organizations completely restructured their operational behavior around them. And eventually, functioning without them became uncomfortable. Not because people consciously decided that should happen, but because operational expectation gradually adapted around the technology itself. And I think AI may be creating a very similar shift now, except this time, the technology is touching not only communication, but interpretation, synthesis, analysis, and decision support itself, which means the consequences may become much deeper. And honestly, I think this is where operational maturity becomes essential again. because mature organizations understand that not every process should move at maximum speed. Some workflows benefit from acceleration. Others require deliberate slowing down. Some decisions carry limited operational risk. Others carry human risk, ethical risk, strategic risk, reputational risk, or governance consequences. And mature organizations understand that acceleration itself should also be governed. Because if every workflow becomes optimized only for the output, organization may unintentionally weaken judgment, reflection, quality, critical thinking, and strategic depth. And I think this is one of the most important tension organizations we need to navigate in the AI era, not simply how fast we can move and where does slowing down remain strategically necessary. And this is where I think UX research has a significant opportunity, because successful AI transformation is not simply a technology challenge. It is a human system challenge. Organizations are trying to understand how work flows across the team, how human and AI collaborate, how trust is maintained, and how decisions are made, but also how quality is protected, how accountability remains visible. These are fundamentally human questions. And they are questions that sit very naturally within the skill set of UX researchers. Because researchers, especially UX researchers, already understand behavior, trust, adoption, friction, workflow, and organizational complexity. In many ways, the profession has spent years studying how people interact with systems. The difference now is that the systems themselves are changing, and organizations will increasingly need people who can help redesign those systems responsibly, not just for users, but for employees, teams, and decision makers as well. And that may become one of the most important strategic opportunities for UX research in the AI era. So ultimately, I don't think the most important question is, do we use AI? Because for most organizations, that question has already been answered. AI is already entering workflow across research, product, operation, management, decision-making, and across all the business. The more important question is, what kind of organization are we building around it? Because AI does not automatically create clarity. It does not automatically create governance. It does not automatically create quality. And it certainly does not automatically create operational maturity. What it does do is reveal the strengths and the weaknesses that already exist inside the organization. Mature organizations will use AI to build more effective systems. Immature organizations may simply accelerate confusion. And I think that is one of the most important lessons leaders should remember over the next decade. AI transformation is not fundamentally about technology. It is about operational design, it is about governance, it is about judgment, and ultimately, it is about people. Because successful AI integration is not simply about making organizations faster. It is about helping organizations become more effective, more responsible, and more resilient. And I believe UX research plays an important role in that future, not only by helping organizations understand users, but by helping organizations understand themselves. Thank you for listening to the UX Research Club, and I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye!